Hello, and welcome to a new episode of We Built It Because We Had to. Today, I'm joined by David Blumenthal. He's the co founder and chief executive officer of Hunters Point Research Technologies. I welcome you here today, David.
Thanks, Jonathan. It's really great to be with you today.
Thank you. Thank you. So what interested me about David's profile was that he's working in a sorely needed niche, and that is the combination of academic policy making and AI as an underpinning Venn diagram, if you will. So I'll have him talk about Hunters Point Research Technologies. But first, David, how about just a background on your career arc and what led you to becoming an entrepreneur?
Yeah. The joke I like to make is that as a tech CEO, I have neither a background in technology or in business. So why am I a tech CEO? It's an
Right.
interesting question. I got my undergraduate degree from Duke University in public policy studies. I've always been interested in policy as an idea. This goes back to, when I was in T-ball in elementary grades, and I was like begging the high school debate coach to let me be on the team. And Mr. Cavallo, he's always like, David, you gotta wait till you're in ninth grade. Like you're in first grade. You gotta like calm down there. So I joined the debate team when I got to high school, and we were debating issues of policy and all that. And then, I just continued to pursue that in undergrad. In my career, I was a researcher. So first in workforce development, and then the bulk of which was in education, specifically focused on secondary and post-secondary transitions. And for over 13 and a half years, I was working at an organization called American Institutes for Research, AIR, social science research firm. We helped conduct high quality and rigorous research in education and also translated it to educators and state and local government agencies. I was really happy in that role. It was challenging, but it was also something that was really aligned with who I am as a person. Unfortunately, due to the disruptions of federal funding for research and evaluation and the dismantling of the U.S. Department of Education, who was the primary funder of AIR at the time, a lot of people were called into a Zoom room in March of 2025. And the CEO let a few hundred of us know today's your last day at AIR. Very sorry about that. And 3 weeks later, my second child was born. My partner and I welcomed our daughter, Miriam, who just turned 1 recently. So it was a pretty dramatic change of life circumstances for me. And it made me reevaluate, like, what am I doing with my career? Suddenly thousands of highly qualified people that had put in decades of research and expertise in conducting and applying research in education and healthcare and international development, all sorts of fields, had flooded the job market. And so there was just really no jobs available because the main employers of these people were suddenly just like shedding employees by the hundreds, if not thousands. And so I had to really think about like what I wanted to do. And as I was spending, 2 a.m., 3 a.m. sessions with my daughter, giving her a bottle of formula or milk or whatever, I started thinking about, what is the future going to look like for me? At the same time, I'd been having some discussions with a friend of mine who has since become my co-founder, Matt Mesoleo. And, Matt happens to have a PhD in computational neuroscience from University of Chicago, happens to know a thing or two about AI. I had just kind of heard about ChatGPT 4.0, just sort of in the background. As a person who has more of an academic research orientation, I was a little skeptical of AI because of the concerns around plagiarism. It's not authentically your work if you're using AI. There's still this disconnect around that. But I was really interested because I've been hearing a lot about it. As a result, what Matt and I had been having some discussions. We were at a basketball game in February and talking about like, what is this AI thing and how does that work? And I was like, well, I might have an idea for how we could apply large language models to the context of research evaluation and specifically around helping educators access evidence-based practices. So after I had been laid off, while I was giving my daughter bottles of milk at all hours of the day, I went back to Matt and I was like, hey, I got a lot of free time now. What do you think about starting a company? And so that's where the conversations began, Jonathan, and we started discussing with some real intensity around this idea of like creating a new tool that takes the latest technology in large language models and machine learning and applies it to using technology to make access to research easier and more applicable to the teachers. There's always been this barrier for decades, if not longer, around putting research into practice in the classroom. I think that's true for really all fields, healthcare, and there's the famous story of Ignaz Semmelweis, who was this Austrian guy who went around in the 19th century and said, "Doctors, you're going from patient to patient to patient, like putting your hands inside of people conducting surgery. You should wash your hands. You should get the blood off of your hands before you go into the next patient." And it took a long time. I actually, Semmelweis was not proven correct about hygiene until after his death, really. And so people are just sort of naturally resistant to this idea of like using research. But the amazing thing about AI is that it cuts through a lot of the, I guess you call it friction around accessing research. You can use natural language. You can ask a question in plain language. You don't have to have a PhD. You don't have to understand research methodology. You don't have to understand what a randomized controlled trial versus a quasi-experimental design is. You could just ask it, what is the most effective approach for solving this challenge? We built a curated database of more than 400,000 peer-reviewed journal articles pertaining to education and the science of learning, and pointed the AI at this database and said, answer the questions that teachers have from here, just here, not from blogs, not from social media, not from the broader internet. Just look at the research and then cut through the noise, get rid of the jargon, give clear recommendations, and most importantly, include the citations back to the research so that when teachers come to the research and they see the recommendation that's within our tool, which we call Eddy, they see it right there. Like, this is where the AI system is finding the answer. It's not finding it from this black box that exists. We've built the box and we've kind of put glass walls around it so you can see how it operates. So that's the idea for Eddy. And what we're trying to do is break that barrier that exists between research to practice in the classroom, so that educators, when they have a challenge, my kids aren't learning the standards the way that I want them to. I really need to provide some new strategy. Let me go to Eddy, ask a question, get some recommendations, generate a lesson plan, create a worksheet, differentiate instruction. The things that are like the administrative tasks that teachers spend hours and hours outside of the classroom doing. Eddy automates that and does it based off of learning science. And so we built a prototype in the summer of 2025. And we started talking to teachers, getting their input on it, using my knowledge and expertise and having conducted research for so long in education and Matt's expertise in building these systems. We've been fine tuning it since, and we built a minimum viable product that we launched in November and started onboarding our first users to get feedback on how Eddy works. And so that's how it all started. And we continue to do this bootstrapping approach, and we're excited about the next phase where we're launching the new version, the feature-rich version based off of the initial user feedback and the more the one that's ready for showtime.
Right, right. Well, thank you for that. I actually have several follow-up questions. Actually, one comment and then a couple of follow-up questions. So one is, it does seem you're forging your way into solving this problem at a time it feels like the world's turned anti-science,
Yeah,
anti-evidence,
yeah,
anti-experts, anti-standards. Um, it, I think it's even outside the United States, but definitely here in the US. I mean,
hmm
we're dismantling the Department of Education. We're attacking colleges and institutions. What about, what are you seeing from your perspective of launching a product like this that helps those things that are being dismantled or denigrated in some way
yeah,
publicly?
yeah. That's an interesting question, Jonathan. And I think that the transition from going from more of an academic researcher perspective to market research has really opened my eyes. I'll give you an example of that. In academic research, you'd pull together large data sets and you need to use statistics in order to run regressions and all this other stuff. Market research, you just want to talk to people. You want to have conversations. You want to have discussions. You want to do surveys. I mean, but I think interviews I've found to be much more valuable for the work that we're trying to do to validate the need for our product and also to learn what we need to do to make it a compelling fit for the market. So that product market fit that we're constantly searching for. And I've known from the academic research, from the constant work on in trying to disseminate research findings. These, like researchers always come up with like fancy terms. Disseminate research findings. Give the research to people. I've known from that work that there's a distrust that exists from educators, from practitioners. That like, who are you, this academic person? Maybe you're from a university or you're from this like nameless organization funded by the government. You're asking us questions and telling us what to do in classroom. And so there's like a distrust there. But one layer of that has consistently come out in our validation conversations with users, and that's around contextual matching. That, and again, that's probably the fancy academic term. Teachers really want to know that the research that was done took place in classrooms and with students that look like theirs.
Okay.
And that's what I mean by context matching.
Right.
And I think there's a social proof that's there as well. And that's another thing I picked up on in a lot of these conversations, that teachers really want to know that the teacher down the hallway uses this too. This is something, a practice that I've been using, or this ed tech tool that I've got is something that I heard or learned about from a peer that I know and I trust.
So is that you're building trust, really?
Yeah, exactly. And that's part of the thing that we've done from the beginning, is that we know that there's this barrier to trusting, a recommendation. So it might have been from an expert. Now it's trusting a recommendation from an AI bot. There's this fear around hallucinations or a distrust
Right.
around like AI chatbots hallucinating answers and just sort of making stuff up on the fly. So we wanted to control for that as much as possible by building a RAG, a retrieval augmented generation system. So a RAG essentially is a closed sandbox, if you will. For again, I'm not the technology person. I'm the vision guy. But the RAG is instead of just searching openly on the internet for answers, the RAG says you're only going to look here, and here happens to be a very large sandbox because we have hundreds of thousands of journal articles. But that way, we're able to control that when a user puts in a prompt to Eddy, they're only going to get a response from the RAG itself, and it'll help provide like that transparency there. So every response includes a citation, and every response that Eddy provides, you got a link, and you click the link, you go there, and you see this is the actual research study that Eddy read in order to provide this response, or to generate this lesson plan, or create this worksheet or rubric or whatever it does to help like save time for teachers. I think that's one layer of trust. The other layer is just the main problem that I think most startups face is that if people are going to adopt your tool, they want to know about it from other people. They want to know about it from other users. They want to know that like it's not just, they don't want to be the first. It's the first mover problem. So there's some people that are really excited about that, and those are early adopters. They're like, oh, this is a new tool. This is a new approach. I want to try it out. There's some people that are oriented like that, but it's a small percentage. Everybody else, they want to know that my friend used this and they got some real benefit out of it. And so that social proof is critical. And I think that's something that I've learned over the last year as we've been building the company, that talking to our users is incredibly important. And then getting our users to talk about Eddy and what they like about it, and sharing it with their friends and saying, I use this and you should use it too. I think that's something I've learned that I'm continuing to learn.
One thing we teach our founder clients is in their MVP process, be sure to get arm's length testers. In other words,
Yeah.
obviously start with
Yeah. You're
friends
not
and
your friends
family
and family.
network, but to validate your MVP off of arm's length. Not that you don't want your friends and family to give you feedback, but they're going to look at it in a different light than someone
Yeah.
who doesn't know you. So, tell me about your MVP process. What are you going through now to validate your product? Are you going out beyond the friends and family network at this point? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We've been trying to break out of the friends and family group because of that very challenge of like, they're like, oh, you're doing a great job, David. Really
Right.
loves the work you're doing. It's like, I need people that don't have any sort of social capital with me to talk to me and tell me like, this sucks. I don't
Right.
do this. So that's part of the process. And so there's a few different ways I've been doing that. One is there's a few communities that exist for, product testers, for educators, where you can pay, people that you don't know, to use your product and to give you feedback on it. So there's a few different groups I found that way, which has been a great way, for me. Teachers are underpaid, so it's a great honor to be able to like pay somebody $50 and say, use this tool. I'll let you have it for free for a month. Here's $50. Tell me what you really think. And so that's one way that we've been trying to do that. And that's led to some great conversations, where I trust, again, going back to trust, I trust that they're more at arm's length. They're more willing to give me that honest, critical feedback on what works about the MVP, what doesn't work about it. We've learned a lot about the things that the users don't like about it, and we need it to have and include in order to make it a compelling offering on the market. So it's been really successful, because I think we knew that the MVP was mostly just a chat experience. Like, it's all chat all the time. Like, you can download it and then like format it on your own and turn it into the kind of document you need. But we knew that that was insufficient. So it was really encouraging to hear users tell us exactly why that was inefficient and why they didn't like that about the experience. I haven't had a lot of conversations with our early adopters and our testers that totally blew me away with something I didn't know about the product. So it's been confirmatory in some way, that it's like, yeah, these ideas that we had, like, for the next version of Eddy, were really important, to add. And here we're hearing it without like feeding the users, like, this is what we think. What do you? And they've just been telling us, like, I wouldn't use this because it doesn't have the ability to generate this kind of document. It's like, okay,
Right.
great. That helps us prioritize our product roadmap and say, here's where we need to focus our attention.
Right. Right. Excellent. So, David, are you now approaching the capital formation stage, bringing in an investor? Maybe you have an investor already. I don't know, but where are you in the
Yeah.
financing path?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think any person that's doing a startup is working on a pitch deck, is working on all of the different documents, their data room. I'm right there. We've bootstrapped up to this point, but I'm actively looking for those first checks from angel investors and preparing for a pre-seed raise. So that's been a big learning curve too, and learning new terminology like, cap table and convertible notes and things that are all new to me.
Right. Right. Well, yeah, it's new to a lot of people that come in, technical founders and others that it's their first foray into the VC game, or the game and then the VC games. By the way, if you ever need help informally, I'm always here. More than 50% of our clients since 2009 have made it public, or even M&A exits. So we're we're doing something to set them on the right course. So
That's great.
back to your story, financing comes next. Then probably you have a backlog list of improvements to the product, or would the financing be maybe to finally get a paycheck, but also fund a go to market activity?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, it's a really fascinating time to be involved in startups, because so much of what you can do is something you could do on your own without having to go outside to, contract work or hiring additional help. So my co-founder, as I mentioned, he's the technical person, and I've always been amazed when I go to him and be like, what I think is a crazy idea. Hey, what if we built a tool that can read hundreds of thousands of articles in a second and then provide a recommendation? Or what if we built a tool that had this feature? And he's like, yeah, I think we could do that. And then it just happens. And that's how it is with almost anything. Like, and so right now, we're finalizing, what we're calling Eddy Pro, which is the more feature rich, version based on the MVP early adopter feedback we've received. And almost all of that product development has happened, just internally with the team of me and Matt, and using Claude and using these tools that help code and actually build the infrastructure for all of this. And so you can add the capacity internally to do the product development. The fundraising is everything else. It's go to market. It's going to support user acquisition. We have to tell people that we built this thing.
Right.
We have to tell them about it, and we have to encourage them to sign up for it and demonstrate that we really have that product market fit. And that takes resources. But there are AI tools that help with that too, with managing social media feeds and doing targeted campaigns where you're reaching out to individuals. But to actually, get the user base that we see as a real possibility here. That's where the that's where the capital raise is going to go.
Right. Excellent. Excellent. Well, congratulations on your progress so far. And
Thank you.
here's hoping for your continued success. And you have a noble cause that you're addressing, a gap that's missing, right? And bringing evidence based
Yeah.
study to the classroom and fortifying it.
Yeah, we're really
And
focused on the teachers because they're the ones that are really doing so much of the work in education, and there seems to be fewer and fewer resources available to them. So we think we're building a tool that can make their lives a lot easier, and they get a lot more job satisfaction as a result out of it. And if we can help improve educational outcomes and also save Sunday night for a bunch of teachers, I think we'll feel really good about what we've done.
that's great. That's great. And to your point, by the way, about Claude Code, boy, from the development teams I'm in contact with, I think 80% of them are now doing broad swath of their programming through Claude Code assisted.
Yeah,
We still
it's
have
amazing.
our engineer in the middle, but yeah,
Yeah, it is truly amazing time to be building something new, and just the fact that you can mock something up with like Lovable or Replit, and just like my build. I'm not a designer, I'm not a technology person, but I can just go and build something and say like, this is what I want it to look like, and then I hand it over to my co-founder. He's like, yeah, okay, I can do that.
yeah, yeah. It's an amazing time. I think we've already seen our first $1 billion 2-person company, actually, thanks to that.
That's
I read
amazing.
the
Yeah,
other day. I need to find out more about that, but, I have my new handy Mac Mini here to my right, set up to isolate my OpenClaw, agentic AI platform, and I too am building out several workflows. Really helps our company actually automate things for our clients, so
yeah,
anyway, David, thank you very much for joining us today. And for those listening, check out Hunter's Point Research Technology if you want to see their progress, David's progress, and his co-founder's progress. But David, thank you very much for joining us today on We Built It Because We Had to.
yeah. Thank you so much, John.